Now turning to entertainment news, the movie The Birth of a Nation opens today in theaters. Our entertainment reporter says it's a shoo-in for an Oscar nod.
He sat down with the star, director, and producer of the film.
Good morning. Our Hollywood happening today looks at the current release of The Birth of a Nation, which is set in Virginia, 1831, and follows Nat Turner, played by Nate Parker, a literate slave in his rebellion for freedom. You know, I was thinking, as a former teacher myself, and I used to teach this period of time in slavery in the South, that set in Virginia, 1809. It's 207 years ago, and we haven't learned enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Do you agree with me?
I do. Well, and I think a lot of it has to do with us not having the information. You know, as a U.S. history teacher, curriculums are hard to get past, you know, and you can't just walk into a school and say, you know what we're going to do? These are all the gaps in the curriculum. We're going to fill those gaps with all the people we need to teach about. You probably wouldn't have your job long. You know, I think that, you know, unfortunately, we put so much energy into being patriotic, but we've put in so, you know, less energy into our true identity as America and the things that we've endured, whether it be with our treatment of the indigenous people and the Native Americans, or it be with the people of African descent in this country. You know, there's healing to be had if we're willing to uncover those stones. You know, one of the things Frederick Douglass said, one of his quotes, he said, I began to see the effects of slavery on slave and slave master when I became free. These systems that existed they really pulled us into a dark place. And so when
both slave and slave.
That's what I was saying. That's what I asked to everyone. And it was systemic. There were people that had the best intentions, but just couldn't get past the system that was destroying and corrupting them.
I think the slave master to your character, Samuel Turner, could have been a good man. In fact, when they were little boys and didn't know anything, they could have been brothers.
That's exactly right. And they maybe felt they were brothers to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But think about, that's what happens. Ignorance is taught. You know, the type of ignorance that inspires racial injustice, it's taught. You know, but sometimes it's taught from exclusion. The fact that I didn't know about Nat Turner or anyone that looked like me that fought for our liberation affected my self-esteem. What if you know, what if I told you, you know, there was no Revolutionary War. Britain just basically said, you can stay and we'll stay here.
No way.
No way. Exactly.
No way. Now, as far as the rebellion, from what I knew, there were other little smaller uprisings.
Tons
of uprisings along the way.
Yes.
But what Nat Turner did was the impact got back to Washington.
That's right.
And that's what was important, and that was the first step. Would you agree?
Absolutely. What people don't know, which I'm sure you know, is Virginia even wrestled with the idea of ending slavery immediately. Because all of a sudden it was like, you know, what do we do? You know, we're not safe in our beds. You know what I mean? So Virginia legislature was like, what do we do about the slave thing? In D.C., they're like, what do we do about the slave thing? And they were at a crossroad, but the reality is it was so profitable. If you could imagine having human beings as your property, you know, whether it be them working or it be expanding your property through them, they had to really ask themselves, were they prepared? Would America be able to stand if they faced this?
And we'll rise up. I like the waves, we'll rise up.
You fought.
In spite of the ache, we'll rise up.
You fought for us all.
We'll do it 1,000 times again.
I pray you sing a new song. Let the high praise of God be on the mouths of the saints and a two-edged sword in their hand to execute vengeance on the demonic nations. Sing to him a new song.
And we'll
Well, Nate Parker wrote, directed, and stars in The Birth of a Nation and excels in all three. The film puts a fiery new look into Nat Turner's story, which is usually lost in American history. The Nat Turner Rebellion eventually led to the Civil War. The film itself features an outstanding cast, cinematography, lighting, and authentic wardrobe. Don't be surprised if The Birth of a Nation receives an Oscar nomination. It's rated R, and it's an easy grade of A. Also opening today, the mystery thriller The Girl on the Train, starring Emily Blunt, a comedy middle school, The Worst Years of My Life, and finally, a comedy horror thriller, The Greasy Strangler. I'm going to see you right here next Tuesday on The Morning Blend with one of the stars of Denial, Timothy Spall.